With Toyota's recent battery electric vehicle announcement, making over 3.5 million battery electric vehicles by 2030 every single year, Toyota gave us a glimpse into their future, showing us 30 different models. After sifting through the photos, there's even more than meets the eye. One of the most exciting vehicles Toyota showed was this light cruiser. It looks like a mini FJ Cruiser, and people have been clamoring for the FJ Cruiser to come back to most markets around the world. I think some markets still get the FJ Cruiser. And what we see here on the back is that it says light cruiser. Well, that wasn't the original name. You got to keep in mind, these are all work in progress concepts, renders, and we have what says down here, Yaris Cruiser. They thought about calling this thing the Yaris Cruiser. Of course, that didn't make it onto the tire here, as they just say compact EV cruiser. So they're still calling it different names even on the official day. As a concept, the name isn't solidified. Compact cruiser EV is definitely not going to be what it's called when or if it comes to the market. I'm pretty sure it will after all the positive things people are saying about this little cruiser. But light cruiser or Yaris Cruiser, I would take light cruiser every single time. And the fact that they're calling it a Yaris Cruiser definitely spells out that this thing is really, really small. It's hard to get a scope of it. I mean, it's sitting next to this Tacoma sized EV pickup truck. And since it's boxy in nature, it's going to have quite a bit of usable space. So I'm thinking about it as something maybe sized like the Nissan Cube or even the first generation Scion XB, the little toaster. And we actually have our first look at the interior of the light cruiser. And you can see light cruiser, Yaris Cruiser on the digital speedometer here, but very minimal. Probably customizable to some extent. And this looks very, very similar to what we see in the new Lexus NX, the Tundra, etc., the new wave of Toyota software. And then this little Easter egg down here, it looks like this is a toy version of either the FJ or the light cruiser. It looks more like the light cruiser to me, but I love that the fact that they're adding little Easter eggs inside of a video that most people are not going to be stopping to zoom in. Now the steering wheel is a little bit squared off. That's okay. Doubt it would make it to production like this. Toyota on the steering wheel as well. And this portion right here could be ambient LED lighting that goes around the edge. And then we have the drive select down here to some extent. Maybe this is the start or the on button, and then you move this little lever to select your park or drive or neutral, reverse, that sort of thing. This is our first look of the light cruiser from the side. Very compact. It looks like it's a 4-seater with these 2 seats in the back, but I think that's all we have on the light cruiser. Guys, put your dream specs for the light cruiser down below, including price. I would want it to be around 30K. I would be happy with 200 horsepower on it and maybe 200 plus miles of range. It doesn't need to be crazy. It's a very economical car that has off-roading capabilities. Anyways, we're going to go down here as well. This is the back end of the red vehicle that kind of reminded me of the Mustang Mach-E. And a lot of people said it was a pretty attractive little crossover. Just as crossover EV, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a good looking concept and looks very production ready to me. But here's our first look of it from the back. Not much to say about it other than the lights are kind of encapsulated by a glossy black. And this looks a little bit like Mazda's old CX-7, if you remember that vehicle in the back here. And then when you go to this image, it looks a little bit better from this angle. So I think it's going to look better. This is just a bad angle of this portion of the vehicle. I've scoured the images that Toyota's given us with this potential electric MR2 successor. I just can't find anything here to talk about, really. I mean, it's a really cool looking concept car, and I hope Toyota makes it. I don't know what this on the back here. It almost looks like computer fans, if you know, like just small radial fans in there, maybe to assist with cooling, but those are awfully small fans. So I don't really know what these, it could be speakers. If you guys have an idea of what these circles could be in the back, let me know. But I wish we had images of the rear of this vehicle. Looks like this is some sort of aerodynamic spoiler and then maybe hollow on the inside. It's just really, really hard to tell without images from the back. Now getting onto Lexus electrified, the RZ's coming out this year. Should have around 300 horsepower, hopefully around 300 miles of range. It's hard to say. I don't know how big battery pack Toyota is going to put in this Lexus RZ. This vehicle is definitely an early test mule. This is not the same body of the RZ that was debuted just recently. So this is production ready. Styling will not change at all from this model. And so what we see in this camouflage version is definitely more ride height. The lights look very similar to the RZ though, and the front end does as well, but these slits look to be a little bit different. The styling of the bumper is different for sure. And the roof line isn't as sloped. So it's almost, to me, it almost looks like an RX size vehicle instead of a NX size vehicle, which the RZ is supposed to be more NX size. But since it's a little bit bigger than the RZ, I'm expecting it to be maybe a test mule for some of these vehicles that we see here. Obviously the RZ being one of them. And then this, guys, I haven't really talked about it a whole lot. I just kind of wrote it off as maybe a vehicle going to China, but this could very well be the replacement for the UX. Well, I'm hoping it is anyways. Or some of you have been even saying a replacement for the CT. You can see that it looks like it has a little bit more space in it. To me, it looks like maybe a Lexus transformed version of the Corolla Cross. And that's exactly what Lexus needs. But the fact that it's all the way on the left might mean it's even smaller than the UX, which I sure hope that doesn't happen, because if we go from left to right, the vehicles get bigger, right? UX, NX, RX, TX, and then they show an ES just at the end because it doesn't really fit in that succession, which I'm assuming this is next generation ES. I really don't know. We're a long ways from that, probably 3 years, which will all be produced in Japan as ES production leaves Kentucky here stateside. As I brighten up the image on this vehicle in the back, what do you guys think? Do you think it's a bit bigger than the UX? Now that it's brightened up, it looks like it very well could be bigger than the UX. Definitely a longer hood to it, a more floating roofline design, and the line on the rear door that comes up is more indicative of what we see on like the RX and the RZ, for example. So this is still one of the biggest mysteries. This vehicle isn't even announced, whatever it is. And these three vehicles here look all to be the same design. The cross country or sport cross, whatever type of vehicle you want to call this, it's just a raised, more off-road capable hatchback. It looks to be the exact same design as this vehicle back here. If you look at the front, from the A-pillar forward, it's all identical. Now, this is obviously a coupe, and maybe it's standard as coupe convertible. That would be pretty cool. Other than the battery sports electric vehicle here, I don't see any other coupes in this lineup. So Lexus really just needs one convertible in its lineup. The LC currently holds that position, but it's also $110,000. Does this mean that this vehicle is going to be cheaper? No, but it looks to be a little bit smaller. And if it shares the same sort of DNA as these three vehicles, that means it'll be cheaper to produce, which is a good thing. And if we zoom into this ES here, to me, this is just like an unfinished design. I don't think they've finished the ES's redesign quite yet. We got the basic outline, probably what's going to be, but from the A-pillar on back, it looks to be identical to the current ES. And even though this is the 3-row TX that we're supposed to get probably by the end of 2023, I expect this front end to probably be placeholder as well. And I still can't figure out if these are plug-in hybrids in the back or if they're battery electric versions. Of course, Toyota/Lexus hasn't communicated that to us. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're probably plug-in hybrids at this point, while the front of these are all battery electric. And if we go to this image here, these are all battery electric vehicles. We don't see any of those existing Lexus vehicles that we see here in that image. And to me, that says they're not battery electric. That's just my take on it. I think these vehicles all in the back will have plug-in hybrids to them. Does that mean the new ES will have a plug-in hybrid? I think there's a really good possibility. Possibly could also have that direct forward technology that they teased, last December, like over a year ago. And God willing, that also means we have a plug-in hybrid of the UX. And also I just noticed on this UX, there's some lettering down here. Whether it's the hybrid UX or the fully electric UX 300E, they all have writing down here. It'll either say hybrid or electric. And there's another strange vehicle right here that made it into this image. So I think what's going on here is that this is a very rough sketch and maybe an early image of the EV lineup. I think this is an old rendering here of maybe an ES refresh. It's very generic. It looks like the Silver Surfer, and there's just not a whole lot going on here. This design looks completely unfinished and very rudimentary compared to this thing, which looks like it go into production tomorrow. And also, just to give you an idea how rough sketch this is, you know, the wheels of the RZ are clipping into the ground. So to me, it's like they just slapped the RZ in here last second with the actual production body styling. And again, it says Yaris Cruiser on the tires of this light cruiser in the back. And this vehicle right here, to me, looks like the successor of the CHR. Earlier, I was calling it maybe the successor to the Igo, but because if we look at this vehicle, this is definitely more in proportions to the Igo. Even though this has the more Igo X-like headlights, I think it's more CHR, or the future iteration of the CHR. And this vehicle right here is pretty interesting. There's a QR code on it. And if you zoom in close enough on this micro box, to Rick Astley, never gonna give you up. Toyota just rickrolled us with this tiny compact EV, and I love it. What is Toyota thinking? I mean, at least they're having fun with this, guys. They're not taking themselves too seriously, and that's a very important quality to have in life. Now, this mid box, I'm not done. We still have more stuff. I keep finding more stuff as this video goes on. This mid box here looks pretty cool and very customizable. So they showed a couple more variants to us real quick. On the license plate back here, it says 4477. If that means anything to you guys, or you're able to pull something out of history or Toyota's plans with this vehicle with 4477, let me know. Maybe those are lucky numbers in Japan. I'm not quite sure, but there's more information in this image than you would think. All right, well, let's start at the bottom right. So obviously this can be used as a commercial vehicle if need be. And you could run your own little cafe or business food truck out of here if you want with the sliding doors. The large lift, but do you guys realize that this van door not only lifts up, but it can open up like a side-by-side refrigerator with this latch here, and you see this crease. So that's pretty nifty if it can actually open many different ways. Also on this vehicle, we have a tray, a table of some sort where you can put items like these guys have their little cooler here. The roof rack accessory on here is pretty cool because it also adds like LED fog lamps to the top. Pretty badass. And then if we look at the front end of here, it's very different than the commercial front end. We have a Toyota logo, a different grille, and possibly customizable lights that go around. Probably wouldn't make it to production, those customizable lights. I wish we had a better look at the interior, but if we look at this one, those lights don't wrap all the way around. It says Toyota in writing here instead of the Toyota badge. And the wheel differences, obviously these are industrial steel, cheap wheels, and then here's a little bit more off-roading type wheels and tires. Pretty cool. Now you notice how the doors open up differently here. We have an extra door on this vehicle and not one on this one. Could it mean that this is a right-hand drive vehicle and the passenger door on the left-hand side opens up? That's a possibility. And we didn't get a lot of looks of the battery electric sports vehicle that Lexus kind of teased as the LFA successor, 0 to 60 in around 2 seconds, over 400 miles of range, just like a complete dream of an electric car. But looking at the back here, I'm like, well, you know, maybe it's not as close to production as I thought, because looking at the roof, this is definitely not going to make it to production. I thought it was going to be maybe a glass roof. It doesn't look like a window at all, right? So I'm like, oh, you know, maybe it's a glass roof or something like that. With how this is designed, I don't think you can design glass to have this sort of aerodynamic roof. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a glass maker, but the rear end of this definitely does not look production ready, at least when it comes to the canopy here. And then from the side, where you charge the vehicle is going to be back here, which I think is pretty cool. It looks like a fill cap, like on a gasoline car. The side profile is just stunning. Looks like a electric Batmobile. Paint this thing black, and it's just jaw-dropping. I don't know what else to say about it. Lexus, bring this to production in this form. Don't change, or change as little about it as possible. I understand that that roof line might not be quite feasible, but what do I know? And after sifting through the images, the videos over and over and over, I'm sure I still missed quite a bit. So I can't wait to see you guys down below. What are your thoughts? What are you most excited about? Just the whole thing? To have all these different EV options? Toyota is claiming EV for everyone. So you have your pick. You want a Scion XB mixed with a Land Cruiser and you make it fully electric? Well, you have the light cruiser for that. If you want an electric Batmobile from the depths of from the future, you got that on the Lexus end and everything in between. But guys, I'll see you down below. I'm really excited. I wish it was 2030 by now, so we would have all these vehicles and we would be having a little bit more fun with Toyota and Lexus than we are right now. Good things come to those who wait, and I will see you guys in 2022. Thank you so much. Subscribe if you're not. Smash the like button if you haven't. Really helps me out. See you in the next one. Peace out.